Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined in the studio today by Craig Burley. And a very happy. Is it laughing? Well, Shaka's always laughing, but even more so today because Champions League football returned to St James's Park, and boy, did it return with a bang. Very memorable night at St James's for Newcastle as they register their first Champions League victory, defeating PSG by 4-1. To give us the French perspective on all of this, Frank Leboeuf joins us. But before we hear from Frank, we've got to hear from the Mayor of Newcastle. I'm an ex-Shaq.
What a night in the northeast. Listen, my concern for Newcastle was that the lack of experience in that squad, big night of Champions League football back in the northeast, how they'd handle it, and the truth is, PSG were the ones that just seemed to falter under the pressure. And in all honesty, PSG and through Dembele had the early chance that he put just wide. But then when you get a gift, as you did from Marquinhos, and the way he gave the ball away, Isaac with a good shot, Almiron with a really good follow-up, and then everything just fell into place. The place just erupted. Players were playing with confidence, and all those pre-game nerves that maybe I expected just went away. And from there on in, it only ever looked like there would be one winner. When PSG did get themselves back in the game, I thought Newcastle did well just to contain that. You're 3-1 up, no need to try to do anything special. They didn't. And PSG kind of played their own part in the fourth as well. So a lot to be very happy about in Newcastle with the way they've responded with their second game back in Champions League football.
Does 4-1 flatter them?
No. Eddie Howe got it spot on and Luis Enrique got it horribly wrong. Yesterday I felt that this crowd was pushed Newcastle forward, and you know the energy and all that would come with this Champions League first home game for quite a while would push them forward and they would leave themselves exposed, but it was the opposite. Actually, you know, they had less possession and they countered, and PSG were so open to any counter when Newcastle won it back or there was a bad mistake, because he basically played a 4-2-4. He left these two young lads, Enrique that is, in the middle of the park, and he left them exposed. He had Kolo Muani, he had Osama Dembele, he had Kylian Mbappe, and he had Gonçalo Ramos up front. And that left, and that there wasn't three in the middle of the park, by the way. Dembele was pushed up. It was basically a 4-2-4. And it just looked horrible. I mean, we talked about the time when they had Neymar, Messi and Mbappe and how lack of work rate and tracking back. It's not much difference.
No.
There really isn't much difference, and Newcastle exploited that. They were brilliant. It's all very well beating Sheffield United 8-0 and doing all that and going to San Siro and not playing particularly well but getting a point. But this was different. This was different. It's not the greatest PSG side, but it was different. There was a bit... And don't forget, no Joe Linton, no Botman, and one or two others were out, Harvey Barnes. So they were not at full strength. And this was, from Newcastle, an excellent performance. From PSG, pretty poor.
Yeah, their worst defeat ever in the Champions League group stages, Frank.
Yes, and you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy for football because, well, that result for me was predicted. It was predicted maybe from myself, not from Shaka, because I think he said it would be a draw. But that was predicted because I promised hell to Paris Saint-Germain at St James's Park, and it's what happened with the 12th man. But on top of it, I'm happy because it comes back to old football. We saw that with Lens yesterday against Arsenal. We saw that today with Newcastle against Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah, it's good to have talent. Yeah, it's good to know how to play with the ball. But if you don't have the commitment, if you don't have the determination, you got nothing. It's what we learned when we were educated for football. And it's what Lens and Newcastle showed to Arsenal and Paris Saint-Germain, that the commitment that you put into the game, and it's what happened with Newcastle, losing the ball, going back at 9 guys, 10 with the goalkeeper, and leaving only Isaac at the back, was exceptional in the way they were working so hard with their heart. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that it was a lesson of how to play football even in a modern time. Paris Saint-Germain deserve nothing but that lesson, and congratulations to the Geordies because they put everything they had to put to win a Champions League game.
Let's take a look at what Luis Enrique had to say after the match about his side's performance. I think we didn't deserve that result. I think we were so close for most of the game. We made some mistakes and we paid for them. Has he got a point?
No. I mean, some of these managers, coaches, call them what you want. It's just incredible. He left himself so exposed in the middle of the park, amongst all the mistakes that they made at the back and others. He left himself so exposed, it was frightening. And that's him, that's his tactics. You know, basically four attackers, real attackers, front guys, wide guys who just like to get forward, don't really like to defend and help out. And you're going to have to do that away from home. And as you know, I've said to you, one in particular, and you might as well go for the biggest, right? Go for the biggest. And Kylian Mbappe, and you know I've had this bee in my bonnet before. But what a gigantic waste of space tonight he was, right?
Yeah.
He didn't do a lot with the ball, and when he's not doing a lot with the ball, he's doing sod all without it. It's something previous managers have had to put up with. It's something Didier Deschamps has had to put up with France, even for his country. He doesn't feel the need he has to track back, and we saw it again tonight. And when you throw in the other three attackers and only two midfielders, one who's 22, by the way, and he's the veteran. Yeah. The other one is 17. And you leave them as exposed as that, and you have lazy superstars. What do you expect? What do you expect to happen?
See, for me, I have no problem with forward
Dance.
if you're trying to pin the opposition's wing-backs back in their own half. But the lack of effort, to Craig's point, from Kolo Muani or Ousmane Dembele out on the right and Kylian Mbappe on the left was just appalling to witness. And during the game, as for the third goal, the Longstaff goal, while yes, maybe you could say Donnarumma could and should have done better, the first thing that just jumped out at me was Kylian Mbappe's lack of effort against Kieran Trippier on the right-hand side. Trippier just allowed to saunter and stop and exchange a couple of passes with Almiron, I think it was.
And pick Longstaff out.
And pick Longstaff out. Yeah. I mean, so to Craig's point about tactics and Luis Enrique's setup, you're asking these players to do a certain job. And when they don't, I don't care who you come up against. This is Champions League football. And rightly, PSG were punished. So for Luis Enrique to see that lack of effort and somehow feel that they deserve more, well, on the one hand, I guess he has to say something, but that nobody's buying it.
Go on, Frank.
I think Luis Enrique proved for many years that he's a great coach, but today he didn't respect the football, he didn't respect Newcastle, and he went with four strikers where he didn't know how to behave. Yes, the three at front let him go because they didn't work as they normally do, but Paris Saint-Germain played that at home against Marseille last weekend, trying to, doing great, or 10 days ago, doing great, winning 4-0 against Marseille. But it's Champions League. I mean, the guy went there, like he was going into a park, collecting flowers. Nobody in the middle of the park. No working on that. I'm very disappointed with the way he presented his team to that big fight. They lost all the duels in the middle of the park because nobody was there. And in front of 11 starved players, you can do whatever you want. If you don't have the good tactic, you're out of the business, and it's what happened today. So I'm against. I think he's responsible for the loss. With the players, of course, because they didn't put the ingredients, but is a big part of that loss today.
But great performance. I mean, great. This is a season setter for Newcastle now, isn't it?
Yes.
It's been a little bit of a bumpy ride. They've started to pick up in the Premier League, albeit against weaker teams recently, Sheffield United and Burnley. But this sets the tone. This sets the standard that we know they reached at times last year, and they're hoping to go better. And I think we saw a bit of that today. You know, Almiron's performance, Alexander Isak's performance up front, continuing harassing, taking the ball into feet, running the channel, linking up. Gomares and Tonali with Longstaff, much better in the middle of the park. And I don't know if there's many better 8 or 9 out of 10 fullbacks week in, week out than Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier is one of the most rock-solid professional footballers you could wish to meet. And we saw that again today. You just can't allow him to traipse up and down that right wing. He's not the most attacking fullback in the game, but guess what? He wants to defend, he wants to communicate, he will get forward, he's great with set pieces, and when you allow him just to run off lazy players like Mbappe, and he's got the whole evening to pick a pass to Longstaff, that's what he's going to do.